Good evening. I'd like to call the August 17th, 2023 Minnetonka School Board Special Meeting to order. Can we all rise and say the pledge to the flag?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, we do have one change to the agenda, and that we will have some announcements at the end after our last item, item 4. With that change, could I have a motion to adopt the agenda?
So moved.
Patrick, is there a second?
Second.
Mark? Any other additions or discussion? No? Okay, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, our first agenda item is the approval of the resolution calling for a capital projects referendum election. Superintendent Law.
Chair Wagner, members of the board, one of the goals for the 2022-23 school year, and again 2023-2004 for the school board, is ensuring long-term financial stability. Now, the school district has a variety of funding streams, and each of those either fund operations or capital projects, the people or the stuff sometimes people think about. This board has heard an ongoing discussion about the status of our general fund. Another part of that is our capital projects referendum, a voter-approved referendum that was going all the way back into the 90s, but most recently approved in 2015, that comes up again due for renewal. The board has had conversations about ensuring the stability of providing these resources to the communities. Last November, last spring, during an operating planning session, the board approved the review and comment to be sent to the state earlier this year, so that we're at a decision point now for the board to be informed. Certainly we had a discussion about this earlier tonight, and I'll call up Mr. Bourgeois to run through a presentation one more time for the public on this project before the board would approve.
Thank you, Superintendent Law. Madam Chair, members of the board. Fire up the gizmo here. This is a little more concise presentation from some of the things that we went through in more in depth back in November and other times, as Superintendent Law mentioned. Just some quick basics about capital projects referendums. They're requests of voters of a school district to provide additional revenue to fund specific capital related needs for which ongoing operating capital revenue sources are insufficient to fund. We have an operating capital revenue for certain capital things, but it's been flat at $230 for approximately the last 7 to 8 years. And of course, with inflation and other things, there's just not sufficient resources to cover what needs to be covered to operate the district in a variety of ways, particularly in terms of providing technology for instruction. It's most often associated with technology needs and for infrastructure, for instruction. It provides revenue for a period of up to 10 years. It's based on a percentage of net tax capacity, which is a calculation based on the property values of all the property in the district, multiplied by certain factors that are set in the tax law to come up with net tax capacity. The other thing is since it's based on a percentage of property values, the revenue can go up or down. Usually it has generally been going up as we've gotten more construction in turnover of properties in the district. But during the recession of 2008 and 2009, it actually went down for several years and took about 4 to 5 years to actually catch up to where it had been in 2008. So it will float up or down depending on what's happening with property values. The referendum must be spent on the same categories as allowed for use of operating capital revenue. But there's typically a subset of those because there's about 16 different categories that for operating capital revenue, and a capital projects referendum is usually a subset. The uses must be described to the voters in the question presented to them. The capital projects referendum must be approved by the Minnesota Department of Education prior to putting a question to the voters. It's through a process called review and comment. And you authorized us to go ahead in the event that we might be doing a capital projects referendum to get a review and comment into the Department of Education because they have a 60-day turnaround time. They did review our request for review and comment, and they have approved this capital projects referendum should you decide to move ahead with it. In Minnetonka 276, it is commonly referred to as the tech levy because funding of technology is the primary use of the voter-approved funds. Just a little bit of history. Minnetonka ISD 276 citizens have supported technology referendum since basically over 30 years now, since 1992. Technology is something that's constantly evolving and improving, and to be able to utilize the most latest instructional techniques or programs, you constantly have to renew it and improve it. Citizens in 1992 approved something called a bond for technology. At that time, there was not an operating or a capital projects referendum available in statute. So you could basically ask for approval for bonds for technology. That was approved in 1992 by a 60% yes vote. So very strong support. Then 10 years later, in November of 2002, the citizens of the district approved what was then called, the statute had introduced something called a down payment levy, which has become the capital projects referendum levy. But the down payment levy was approved for 10 years at $2,900,000 for the first year. And that gave the district authority to fund fiscal year 04 through fiscal year 13. The rate at that time was the equivalent under the property tax laws at that time to the current 6.569% of net tax capacity. That was approved with a very solid 56% yes vote. In 2007, citizens approved extension of that levy, but it was now called the Capital Projects Referendum Levy due to various changes in statute. And that extension gave the district the authority to fund fiscal year 9 through fiscal year 18. Again, the rate was equivalent to the current 6.569% of net tax capacity. That was approved with a yes vote of 64%. In 2015, citizens approved an extension of that capital projects referendum levy, the voters authorized us to fund fiscal year 17 through fiscal year 26, the same 6.569% of net tax capacity, and that was approved with a vote of 4,770 yes to 1,780 no, which is a 73% approval rating. So very strong support. The community recognizes that technology is really inherent to everything we do now, and it's constantly evolving and changing. What does the capital project referendum pay for? All instructional technology, including all instructional software and traditional text. If you think about instructional software, it actually is just electronic textbooks, right? All staff development for the use of instructional technology software. Staff development is an educational way of saying training, staff training. All administrative technology to keep the district running, including any administrative hardware of any type, and administrative software from payroll to student records to budget tracking, so the back office operations of the district. All the network backbone to run the instructional and administrative software, fiber cable, wires, network control software, the servers, cloud storage, just a myriad of infrastructure that is needed to run everything. All the staff members who deliver instructional staff development training. All the staff members who run the network, make sure instructional software is running, and make sure administrative software is running. Everybody who just keeps things going, kind of down there in the engine room of the USS Minnetonka. All the staff members who support all the hardware, network devices, network wiring to instructional administrative devices, firewall, antivirus, anti-malware, really important stuff, anti-hacking protection, instructional equipment of all types, including technology and traditional classroom equipment and furniture. So it's technology equipment, but for instance, Minnetonka Research, they might need unique equipment for some of the projects that the students have. That is funded out of, that's a non-tech, or it's a different type of technology, but it may be not a computer and it's software, but a microscope or things like that. Anything that's that type of equipment can be funded out of this capital projects referendum. And finally, but just as importantly, security barriers to keep out intruders from our buildings, security monitoring systems. We've been constantly utilizing this referendum revenue to continue to enhance and increase our security. So the amount of the capital projects referendum levy for the coming 23 pay 24 levy is actually $240,483 under the current authority at that 6.569% of net tax capacity. If the
Mr.
authority is,
Bourgeois, 9,240,000, just to clarify for the
Oh, sorry.
public.
Pardon me.
9,240,000.
I need a little more caffeine, I think. $9,240,483. If the authority is approved for extension to fund fiscal year 25 through fiscal year 34 at the same 6.569% rate, the district will receive this coming levy, $240,483. In future years, the amount could go up or down with any increases or decreases in net tax capacity, dependent 100% on the property values of the district, as is currently the case. So basically, this is proposing to extend, but not increase the rate. So the potential question actually has been approved, and we have to get the question, if we're going to run this referendum, we have to get it into Hennepin County by August 25th, next Friday. So this is actually the wording of the question. I'm not going to read the whole thing, but it literally lists out the key functions of the referendum. A few things is it says we have to say the purchase and installation of software and technology. Basically general categories: costs related to the support and maintenance of technology, costs related to training staff and the use of technology, the purchase of classroom equipment and instructional text, and building security equipment. And it says the project is to be funded, has received a positive review and comment from the Commissioner of Education. Then there's a yes or no. This is the actual question. And then at the bottom, there's something that can be a little bit confusing, but it's required by law. This exact wording is required by law. And it says, by voting yes on this ballot question, you are voting for a property tax increase. Now, the wording at the bottom refers really, in our situation, to the extension of time, because we're not asking for an additional dollar amount. We're asking for the same rate that we're going to be levying under the current authority. So we're asking for the extension of the authority. And so technically, by extending the authority, yes, we're asking the voters to pay additional taxes over the course of the extended time. But bottom line is the amount per year is being requested to stay the same. We just are requesting for additional time to continue to fund excellence for our students in Minnetonka Public Schools.
Thank you, Mr. Bourgeois. Could I have a motion to approve the resolution calling for a capital projects referendum election as presented?
So moved.
Katie, is there a second?
Second.
Chris? Okay, so again, before I take questions, just to clarify for the board, this is an extension, not an increase. It's basically a renewal and not a new tax. And our approval of this would be asking our voters to approve something that would not have a tax increase for them. It would stay at that same 6.569% rate that it's been at since 2002.
Yes.
Correct, Mr. Bourgeois?
Yes.
Okay. Questions from board members? No? Okay, I know we've had quite a bit of discussion, and again, an extension, not an increase, which is key here. So it's been moved and seconded to call for a capital projects referendum election. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. So please submit our paperwork. Okay. Our next agenda item is the approval of the reestablishment of partnership with District Number 287. Superintendent Law.
Chair Wagner, members of the board, in 2016, Minnetonka school districts parted ways with a collective group of school districts who had been providing special education programming for students with the intent to provide ramped up programming within our district. During that time, for unique students and very low incidence, one student or two students throughout the school year, sometimes as many as 4, we have leaned back into collaborative school districts to purchase services again. That model worked when there were very low incidence of students until a shortage in special education staffing started putting our students in the spot where they couldn't get services that the parents and district agreed upon because we're not a member. So they were saying we were put on a waiting list. So after reviewing this situation during the past year and making a determination, how do we guarantee that we can provide services that our students need and parents in the district want, we reopened a conversation with District 287 to make sure we could guarantee that placement. I've been updating the board throughout the summer. Tonight, we're going to reestablish that relationship. We aren't intending to move students who are existing in other programs, but we are intending to place new students in guaranteed seats in District 287. Executive Director of Student Services and Special Education, Christine Breen, is here to summarize this proposal and add any more detail, answer questions. Ms. Breen.
Yeah. Thank you, Superintendent Law, Madam Chair, members of the board. As Superintendent Law shared, we were members of District 287, and a couple of you were here at that time, and withdrew from that in 2016. And as Superintendent Law shared, we worked within that time within our current staffing and structures to meet the needs of students. However, over time, student needs have changed for a small population of our students, as Superintendent Law shared. And the need for access to Setting 4 programs is increasing. Districts are required to provide a full continuum of services for students to access, and that includes Setting 4 services. This programming, Setting 4, is considered the least restrictive environment for some students whose needs cannot be met within a traditional public school setting. Without access to a consistent and reputable Setting 4, some of these students may not be appropriately programmed for, and that's the concern we're bringing forward today. Superintendent Law and I have been engaging in discussions with Intermediate District 287 Superintendent Marcy Dowd over the last several weeks and engaging around how might they meet the needs of our students for this small population within their district. By rejoining 287, we will have access to their wide array of Setting 4 programs, but not just Setting 4 programs. We will then have access to additional programs for both general education and special education students. One such program is the West Suburban Summer School for the Gifted and Talented. When we were a member, students with intellectual or academic needs were able to access this program, which provided both challenge and growth for that individual student. So Minnetonka District Administration believes it's in the best interests of students, families, and staff at this time to rejoin Intermediate District 287. Happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Ms. Breen. Could I have a motion to approve the reestablishment of our partnership with Intermediate District 287 as presented? So moved. Katie, is there a second?
Second.
Mark? Discussion or questions for Ms. Breen? No? Okay. It's been moved and seconded. Oh, sorry.
You're talking about small population. How many students are we talking about at this time?
Yeah, right now we will look to
Sorry. How many students are we talking about at this time?
Right now, we will look to place 4 students to start the 23-24 school year. We currently have 6 students placed out in other intermediate districts. As Superintendent Law shared, we've had a nice collaboration with District 288, who has worked really hard to meet the needs of Minnetonka, even though we haven't been members. So we have 6 students placed at 288, and as Superintendent Law shared, we will not look to move those students. They're happy with their programming. What we will do is look to move them when they transition between school buildings, so 5th to 6th, 8th to 9th, and so on. So at this time today, we're looking to place 4 students at 287.
Follow-up?
Sure, go ahead.
And how many students totally are we servicing in our district?
Students on IEPs?
Yeah.
Roughly 1,400.
Okay.
That includes both resident
I just
and
want to see the
full-time.
context, so
Yes,
thank you.
very small. Minnetonka historically has been a small utilizer of Setting 4. I think we do an excellent job, although I'm biased, of meeting the needs of our students in special education here within our district. It's very important to us. So, small user of Setting 4.
Patrick?
I just had a quick question about the budgetary impact, if any, of making this switch. I'm very supportive of supporting the needs of our students, but I just wanted to know that context as well.
Yeah, and I believe Superintendent Law had previously shared, we did run some numbers, what it would cost for Minnetonka Public Schools to run our own Setting 4 or to service these students, and it was significantly higher than what we would be paying for 287. Minnetonka would have to run a K-12 comprehensive special education Setting 4 program, and you might have a student with a cognitive disability, a student with an emotional disability, and a student on the autism spectrum all in the same program, K through 12, which is not feasible, it's not appropriate for students. And so looking at the budgetary costs, certainly more financially advantageous to use 287 than to run it our own, and better meets the needs of students. I don't know if, my friend Paul left, but David, if you want to speak on that.
The tuition cost for 288 or 287 as a non-member district is comparable. It's it can be much more expensive as a non-member to purchase services. There's a facility need that goes with being a member district to support their facilities that we'll have to cover. But even if you look at what we pay for tuition per student and the facility need, it's significantly less expensive than trying to replicate program.
Thank you.
Any other questions that board members have? No, okay. Seeing none, it's been moved and seconded to reestablish our partnership with Intermediate District 287 and become a member. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, we have motion carries then. Our last item this evening is announcements. I believe we have an announcement there. Patrick, go ahead.
Thank you. Just a brief community announcement. The student directors of the Minnetonka Student Arts Showcase would like to invite the community to their one-time performance next Friday, August 25th at 7 p.m. at the Minnetonka Arts Center. Since about 2019, high school students in Minnetonka who have been involved in theater have organized, directed, and presented an entirely student-run theater showcase as a summer showcase to perform songs and dances for musical theater. Students from freshman through senior year auditioned last spring and have been rehearsing all summer, and it's sure to be a great program. I hope you'll join us at the Minnetonka Arts Center next Friday at 7 p.m. for this free performance.
Great, thank you. Any other announcements that board members have? No? Okay, could I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Katie, is there a second?
Second.
Megan? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, we are adjourned.